occurred to me that I recorded this entire video, but I don't think I ever properly introduced myself. So I'm Halie, and one of my favorite things to do is read. If you couldn't guess by the fact that I'm making a video to talk about reading and I'm sitting in a room with a ton of books, but reading is one of the main ways that I relieve stress, and I really just wanted to create a place where I could talk about the books that I'm reading, share my experience, and hopefully hear from other people what they're reading or if they've read the same books and how they felt about them. I just love to be able to talk to other people about what I've been reading and how we feel about them, because everybody has vastly different opinions on books, and I just love that like intellectual dialogue about them. So that is why I wanted to sit down and record this and start recording videos talking about books. But yeah, just wanted to make sure that I did introduce myself, and I'm sure as I make more videos, I'll share more about myself. You'll get to learn more about me and some of my other hobbies besides books, but yeah, just wanted to make sure that I did introduce myself fully. So I have been filming a couple of little reading vlogs, mainly because I spend a lot of my free time reading and I really enjoy engaging with other people's reading content, and I just thought maybe I should sit down and talk about the books that I'm reading and have an opportunity to interact with people through a hobby that I really enjoy, and hopefully get to share that with some people. So I just kind of sat down and recorded a couple of vlogs about stuff that I was reading, but I never really sat down and made any type of like introduction or anything about me or what reading looks like for me or why I enjoy reading. You might have guessed that quite a few of these books are unread. I have not yet gotten to them, and I used to have a very small physical TBR, and just over time, having such a nice library area in my house, I have bought a lot more books that have stood out to me, that have been recommended to me, that I've seen on TikTok, and I haven't had time to sit down and read all of them. So I think now is the best time for me to be taking the time to sit down and record this video and talk about books, and also give myself some accountability to actually get through my physical TBR. So before we do that, we do have to do a little bit of an unboxing. Let's go through the new books that I've gotten that I have added to my physical TBR, and then we'll talk about what behind me is actually my physical TBR, and then what my plans are to move forward and actually tackle this TBR in the next year. So let's start with what I bought kind of most recently, to the first stuff that I ordered. So not a huge massive Barnes & Noble haul, but we had to go pick up a couple of gifts that we had ordered online for in-store pickup. I've got a couple books that I got from Barnes & Noble over kind of the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. I feel like Black Friday turned into like even more than a week this year. So I did get You Like It Darker by Stephen King. I had tried to get this book. I had it in my cart on Book Outlet, which, spoiler, I've got quite a few Book Outlet books here, but I missed out on it. It went out of stock before I had finished my purchase. So I was really excited to find this for 50% off at Barnes & Noble. Not the best deal I got for the whole time, but really glad to finally have a copy of this. I do have quite a few Stephen King books that are on my TBR, which I'm really excited to get to, but I'm probably going to try to do a Stephen King only vlog. So you'll get to hear all my thoughts on a bunch of different Stephen King books. And then the other book that I picked up while we were there was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Yeah, I think that's the right way to pronounce it. If it's not, please let me know. And as you can see, I am currently reading this. I just started this today. I've been reading a lot of fantasy books, which technically this falls into that category too, but I feel like I had been reading a very specific category of fantasy books, and so this has just been something a little bit different. I've never read a book by this author, and I'm trying to do a little bit of mood reading just to help myself get back into it and feel excited about reading, because I had an anticipated release that was a little bit of a bummer for me recently. So far I'm really enjoying this. I'm a little over 50 pages in, and I do plan to make some pretty good progress on on this. I'll finish it probably at some point this weekend.
Little did she know that was a complete lie.
But I'll probably talk about that more in another video. So those were the only two that I picked up at Barnes & Noble. So let's go through everything I got from Book Outlet. So as I mentioned, I've got quite a few Stephen Kings, and a lot of these were in that order that I just mentioned. So let's look at the Stephen King books first. I've got Firestarter, which has been on my wish list for a long time. And I've also got Billy Summers, which I was really wanting to read. And I've got If It Bleeds. So those are the paperbacks that I picked up from Book Outlet. Super excited to get to those. And then the last Stephen King book that I got from Book Outlet was Halie, which I've also had my eye on this for a really long time. And then I did grab a few other things. So I picked up Red Rabbit, which I hadn't heard of this book before, and I was just browsing Book Outlet and I read the synopsis of this and it seemed really, really interesting to me and just right up my alley. And I did take a peek at Goodreads to see what other people thought about it, and I thought everything that was in here would be something that I might really enjoy in a book. So I did pick this one up. We'll see if I include this in a vlog and maybe share my thoughts. Or of course I do review everything on Goodreads and on Fable, which I am thinking of switching to using Storygraph, so I'll let you know if I do that. But for the meantime, Goodreads and Fable are a good place to find me, and I'll probably link those. So if you're interested in seeing what I've been reading this year and my thoughts on books that I will be reading in the next year, everything will be on there. And then I got 3 more books in that order from Book Outlet, and they I forgot to mention, those other books were all $5.99 for their Black Friday sale, and that started probably about like 2 weeks before Black Friday, so they had some great deals. And then they also have these kind of like faux leather bound books, and they have a lot of classics in this like faux leather style. These are really all beautiful, like all the covers are really nice. So there were a few classics that I didn't have on my classic shelf that I did want to pick up. So I did pick up a copy of Uncle Tom's Cabin because I've never read this. I also picked up Crime and Punishment, again in one of these faux leather bindings, and these do all have bookmarks included in them as well, which I think is really nice. And last but not least from that order, I got Anna Karenina, and I have been like seeking a copy of this that I would be happy with for the longest time. They do have like the cloth bound version at Barnes & Noble, but I read some reviews that the translation of that cloth bound version was not great and that there were a lot of errors in it, so I had continued to look for one, and finally I found this one. I thought it was beautiful, and I'm really excited to read this in the new year. So that was all my first Book Outlet order. Notice how I said first. So I haven't opened my second Book Outlet order because once I got it, I realized, hey, I should probably sit down and make this video about how I have a problem with book buying and my plans for how I'm going to get through these books. So this one is still fully plastic wrapped and everything. So let's take a look at what I've got. So if you're not familiar with the Murderbot Diaries, they are a series of novellas or short stories that are sci-fi, and they're about a robot who becomes sentient, and I have really been enjoying those. They're written by Martha Wells, and so when I was looking on Book Outlet's sale, they had quite a few Martha Wells books on their website, so I was able to pick some of those up. So I got The Witch King and City of Bones. And then this one is cool because it actually has 2 of the books in this series, which I'm not sure if there's more than 2 in this series as a whole or if it is just a duology. I need to actually look into these as well as her other books and see how many books are in each of these, because she does have a few different series. She's pretty well written, so she's got quite a few books out there. But this one includes The Element of Fire and The Death of the Necromancer. I've really been enjoying her Murderbot series, so I'm really looking forward to getting into these 4 books when I have the chance to. And then I picked up a few that have been on my radar for a while, because when the books are on sale for $5.99 or less, it's pretty hard to pass up. So I have heard tons and tons of good things about Octavia Butler's writing, and so I wanted to pick this up. This is the first book in a series, I believe. Let me see if I can get the name of this series. It's the Lilith's Brood Saga. And so I've had a few different Octavia Butler books on my wish list, and so this one was on there, and I wanted to go ahead and pick this up so I could start on that series. Then I also got Razorblade Tears, which has been on my wish list for a while. This might be on Kindle Unlimited now. And then I also got Circe, which lots of people rave about Circe. And, you know, I personally haven't gotten into a ton of mythological retellings, but I'm really, really excited to read Circe. I've heard some really good things both on and offline about this book, so I'm really glad that I was able to snag that. So that takes care of everything that I got from Book Outlet. And we're in the home stretch. Let's go through what I picked up from Amazon. So I've got Malice by John Gwynne. In addition to that, we've also got Cast, which I've been hearing about recently. Oh, I also got A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which I have to tell y'all, this was already on sale for like $7, and then there was an additional like $3 off coupon. So this order in particular that I got this book in, I got such good deals because all the books in this order had additional like $3 to $4 off of them for some reason. So you will not hear me complaining. Really excited to have a copy of this. I've been wanting to read it for a long time, and I will definitely be getting to that sooner rather than later. Some books, once you get them, they just immediately move to the top of the TBR. Now, I have read the 7-Year Slip, and I've also read A Novel Love Story, so I had to pick up The Dead Romantics. Now, like most people, I loved The 7-Year Slip. It was the first thing that I read by Ashley Poston, or Poston, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that, and I just was like head over heels for that book. I thought it did such a great job exploring change and how we as individuals have to choose to grow, and how if you love someone, you have to accept that they do change over time, that like change is the one thing that you can expect to occur. So I just really love that book, and I felt like I had some takeaways from it that may not have been as obvious to everyone who read it. But then I read A Novel Love Story, and while the concept was cute, I think the romance that was presented in that one really fell flat. So honestly, if that book had been made and there wasn't a romance worked into it, I think it would have been better. I still like Ashley's writing overall, but it was just like that book as a whole didn't work as well for me. It was enjoyable, it just wasn't my favorite book that I've read this year, but I have not yet read The Dead Romantic, so I wanted to get this one so I could finish off the trifecta of books that you hear everyone talking about from Ashley Poston, and I am really excited to get to this one. They're all pretty short books, so I'm pretty sure I'll be reading this one pretty quickly and pretty soon. Another book that I have heard tons about is Station 11, and this, I believe, follows a kind of post-apocalyptic world, and there's a troupe of people that travel around and perform. I believe that's my understanding. Yeah, the tiny band, I guess, is what they're referred to on the back of the book here. So I'm really excited to get into this. I've heard that it's a really amazing book, and there's a lot that is covered in here. I feel like the premise sounds like it might just be like a silly, goofy time, a group of people traveling around and performing, but this all happens kind of in a post-pandemic world, and there's a lot of like the before and after and how things change, and so I just think this will be really, really great to read, and everybody seems to love it, so I'm hoping that I will also love it. I also wanted to get Beartown because I've heard really good things about this, and I'm also hoping to at some point get Anxious People, or maybe it will hit Kindle Unlimited if it's not on there, or maybe that can be one of my digital books that I get with my rewards. But I've heard really good things about him, and I think I'm really going to enjoy a lot of the topics he approaches in his writing, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this and his other works. Alright, so here is my other mythology-based book, Piranesi. I'm pretty sure this is based on mythology. Well, I don't see anything that clearly says that it is, but if it isn't, then I guess I'm just silly. If it is, then I'm on the right track with what this book is about and how it's set up. But I have heard amazing things about Piranesi, and I've never read it. And I think a lot of people get to read this in school or have read this through school. At least I've heard a couple people talking about having read this in school and being really fond of it. So I would really like to read this. And again, it's a shorter book, and we love a short paperback. So not going to complain about that, but I think this will be a really good one to get into. And then this one actually was a book club book. I'm a part of a couple of book clubs, digital and in person. And this was the November book for one of my book clubs, and I just didn't want to splurge on buying the book. I really didn't want the paperback because I think it's got such a pretty cover. I really wanted this. And the nice, beautiful purple sprayed edges, of course. Gotta have the sprayed edges. But I didn't want to splurge and pay full price for it. So it was on sale for super cheap for Black Friday, so I finally did pick this up. And fortunately, the way that my book club is set up, this was for one of my virtual book clubs. I have missed the meeting for it, but there is still a thread on Discord where I can go and talk about all things related to this book. So now I also picked up Notes on an Execution. I'm pretty sure I heard Lexi or Newly Nova. I'm trying to remember what her handle is, but she's on TikTok and YouTube. I'm pretty sure I heard her talking about this, and I'm just really interested to get into this. Based on what she had to say about it, if I'm remembering correctly that it was Lexi that spoke about this, I think I'm really gonna love this. I love books that are really thought-provoking, so I'm glad that this one was on sale for Black Friday and that I did decide to pick it up. And we're down to our last few here. So you know I'm reading my first TJ Klune book at the moment, but I also had to pick up Wolf Song. I have seen this one at Barnes & Noble several times, and it always has intrigued me. Now, this part does scare me a little bit. He is my pack, my mate, and my alpha. I don't know how I feel about that. So I really have wanted to read this based on what I've read about it, but we're gonna see if this is for me or not. I am really liking TJ Klune's writing so far, and I'm reading the current book, Under the Whispering Door, pretty quickly, so I'm hoping that I would also like the writing in here, and that maybe it will be okay. But just like when I hear my alpha, it scares me a little bit. I did read Bride by Ali Hazelwood for one of my book clubs. That was the first and probably the last Ali Hazelwood book that I will read. So let's just put it that way. That was not for me. So that's not really my genre. I did not enjoy the things that were being described in that book. We will see how that one goes. 3 more books here. So I've got the first book in the Magnolia Park series. I hear pretty much every person on YouTube or BookTube that I watch talks about Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates. A lot of people have said that this relationship is super toxic and they're maybe not the most likable people, but I don't really need likable main characters. I like books that make me question people's motives and if they're good people, and I especially like unreliable narrators, so I hope we get some of that in here, and I hope it's just interesting instead of just, you know, your cookie cutter Hallmark romance. So I'm hoping I like these as much as everybody else likes them. And then the last 2 in the box, I've got Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna, one of the vlogs that I did record before this video, which will probably be available either at the same time or after this video, was a Kristen Hannah reading vlog. So I did get to 3 Kristen Hannah books in that vlog, and I just have absolutely fallen in love with her writing, and I've heard amazing things about Firefly Lane. So I have read 4 of her books in total up till now. I have 3 more that were already on my physical TBR, and I'm adding Firefly Lane to that because this one was on such a good deal, and I've just really wanted to read it based on what I've heard about this book. And then last but not least, I have had my eye on Can't Spell Treason Without T ever since I first saw it in Barnes & Noble a few months ago, and I just absolutely think these sound so cute and cozy, and I think the romance in here is going to be super sweet. So I'm really excited to read this. It does have some lovely sprayed edges. Both the first and second book have that, and that covers everything that I have here in front of me in terms of books. So this was a lot of books to add to my physical TBR, so I want to switch gears for a sec and just talk a little bit about my physical TBR and what my plans are for the new year. Alright, so let's talk physical TBR super quick. So I do have the TBR cart, just like everyone and their mom. It's 3 shelves here. Now, only the top shelf has books on this side, and then a couple on the other side, which were my, like, priority TBR, which I, spoiler alert, have not gotten to many of those. But I do have quite a few books on my physical TBR. There are quite a few books in this room that are unread. And this is not all of them. So I do have 3 tiers here, if you can see, of books on my physical TBR. I'll give her a little spin. And then I've just got a few books that were sat kind of cute on this side that were my priority TBR. So some series that I've wanted to get to. I've got Rebecca up here, which is a classic. My husband just kindly bought me James, which I have really been wanting to read, and I believe that Barnes & Noble just labeled this their book of the year. So really excited to get into that. Just a couple other books that I was really wanting to get to here. I set this up in October, so you'll see that there's some like thriller type books on this side, or in some kind of Halloween, or like, you know, love of my afterlife, like death. That sounds horrible to say. That sounds so morbid. But Halloween themed type books. So this has not been refreshed for the holidays. I've had a lot going on at the moment. But I have been continuing to read from these books. And then let me just show you the rest of my physical TBR. Feel free to roll your eyes because this is pretty ridiculous. So not only is that cart TBR, these shelves are TBR. So these 3 right here that you see on the bottom are books that are on my physical TBR. Those are unread. So before October, I kind of separated out like a seasonal TBR. I'm probably going to change that and mix up the way that these are organized, because I am gonna use a few different methods to pick monthly TBRs, and I want them to be a good mix. Right now this top shelf is a lot of like summery feeling romances, and some other like summery like lake books and like low country books, so probably gonna mix that up just so I get a good variety. I haven't exactly decided if I'm gonna like look at my whole TBR when I'm picking out my monthly TBRs, or if I'm just gonna look at like seasonal books and then rotate in and out however I need to. So we'll be putting some more thought into that, and if you have any suggestions, please let me know. But yes, I have my lovely cart and all of these books. And then throughout my other shelves, a lot of the other books are read, but I do have a few that are in series that I haven't finished. For example, I have a whole shelf that I'm looking at that has my Brandon Sanderson books on it. So those are still something that I would consider to be on my physical TBR. And then I do have a horror thriller shelf, which is where all of my other Stephen King books are, aside from the ones that are on my little priority cart here. So I will also consider those on my physical TBR for the purpose of going into the new year. So yeah, I do feel like I've had a little bit of a book buying problem since I have been blessed with the opportunity to own a home and have my own personal library space. So for that reason, in the new year, I am completely going on a book buying ban, which based on all the books that I just bought, I think is more than reasonable, considering I've got all of these books that I need to get to that I literally haven't gotten to. So I think my plan is that I either need to read the book, or if I want to DNF it, if I don't like it, then I've got to either donate it or like book swap with somebody from my book club, because my in-person book club does do swaps, or I can just take some books that I don't enjoy and give them away to the other girls there if I want to. I did do that when I went to our first meeting, just because I had a few books on my shelves that I didn't really want anymore. So, in order to motivate myself to do this, I am going to film monthly TBR videos. I'm planning to put my entire physical TBR and my digital TBR, because I do have unread books on Kindle. I'm planning to put that on Goodreads, so all of the books will be shown on there and I'll be able to reference that list. So I don't have a total number of my physical TBR, but once I do have that from putting all the books on there, I will pop it in here so you know how many books I'm working with for the next year. I'll also probably pop up some math about how many books I would need to read per month if I was actually going to tackle the entire physical TBR. I have read, I think, about 115 books this year. I think I'm just shy of that, so probably when I finish my current audiobook and the book I'm reading, I'll be either at 114 or 115. And I think I'm on track to do like 120 to 125. I do have quite a bit of time off in December, so I'm probably going to get more reading done than I have in other months. But I think I probably have more than 125 books on my physical TBR, which is so embarrassing to admit, but that's why I'm making this video, and I am making a plan for tackling these books and getting them read before I just continuously add to my physical TBR, because it's definitely a bit ridiculous and I would like to be a little more financially responsible. Like, I have big girl money and I buy my books with it, or I receive them as gifts, but I would rather save a little more money instead of buying more books and then not even having time to get to them. So the way I am planning to motivate myself to do this, and also not to spend outrageous money on other things that I enjoy collecting, is that for every 20 books that I get off of my physical TBR, I am planning to give myself the freedom to pick up a Jellycat, or to save that money for something else. So I really don't need more Jellycats. I have more than these 3, but these are just the 3 that are sitting on my reading chair. But I love them, and I feel like there's a lot of hype around them, and that leads to a tendency of like, you need to buy it as soon as a new one drops, or this one's gonna sell out and it's limited edition and you're not gonna get it. And I am totally a victim of that scarcity mindset and feeling the need to pick them up as soon as I can. So my plan is, for every 20 of these that I get done, I will have the freedom to pick up a Jellycat if I want to pick one out for myself. Now, we're not talking anything ridiculous, like this donkey and the dragon were a little more expensive than some of the other ones. I won't be buying anything that expensive. I will have like a money limit set on that, so if I wanted something bigger, I would need to read like 40 books to be able to afford that kind of thing. So I think that'll be good motivation for me, and if it's not, then obviously I'll update along the way and I'll switch out to something else that I feel like will be a good incentive for myself. But honestly, just like saving money by not spending it on books is a pretty big incentive for me. So that is my plan to tackle this physical TBR. I just wanted to sit down and do this video as kind of an intro, and talk about why I'm doing this, and how important it is to me in the new year to tackle this physical TBR, because it has gotten pretty out of hand. Well, I apologize for the crap lighting because I am recording this a little late in the day and we just got back from walking the dog and it's pretty cold out there, so I figured I would just grab this video really quick and not bother with fixing my hair or anything. But the lighting in this room is not amazing when it's dark outside, so I set you up in the best place possible to try to get the best lighting. But I did get all of my TBR added to my Goodreads, and I've got my calculator pulled up here just so I can do the math that I promised. So this is a little embarrassing, but my physical TBR is currently at 194 books. I did finish my count the other day, but yesterday was my birthday, so I have gotten a couple little book gifts, both from other people and just a couple I picked up for myself because we popped into a bookstore, a local bookstore that was part of my birthday. So I wanted to support the bookstore and pick up a couple things that stood out to me because that's always fun to browse and find something that speaks to you. But so physical is at 194. My digital TBR, which I think only one of these is a duplicate, my digital TBR is at 52. So that's the number of books that I own on my Kindle that are unread. So that does not include anything that's on Kindle Unlimited currently, because I do have some Kindle Unlimited books downloaded. Now, just a disclaimer for the physical TBR, that does include stuff like all of my Brandon Sanderson books in series that are unread, as well as Game of Thrones, because I'm currently reading the first book of that. So any unfinished series I also included in that physical TBR if I do already own them. So when I'm picking my monthly TBRs, only the next book that I'm on in a series would be up for picking. But for the purposes of all the books that are currently in this room, there are 194. So I promised some math about how many I would need to read if I was actually going to finish that in the next calendar year. So I'm going to do just my physical books first. So I would need to read a little over 16 books per month in order to complete my physical TBR. I definitely have had months where I'm up there around that range. I've also had slumpy months where I'm getting nowhere near my typical reading month. So I think that would be a challenge, but it's probably doable for me to get pretty close to reading all the books I have on my physical TBR in a calendar year. Now, that would be if I don't allow myself to read anything on Kindle Unlimited, and if I don't read any of my Kindle books. So let's see what our grand total is. Okay, so that would be 245 total unread books that I currently own. So that divided by 12 months, that would be about 20 books per month. So a little bit over 20 books per month. I feel like currently it's probably unrealistic that I would do 20 in a month. So I'm probably going to try to find a happy medium. And I'm going to do my absolute best to aim for at least 15 per month. But when I do my monthly TBR videos, I'm probably only going to pull 10. And then I'll let the other 5 to 6 or more, if I can get to it, be mood reading based, as opposed to giving myself a set TBR that I have to do every single month, because I think that would make me feel pretty slumpy if I were to do that. So those are the final numbers. They are in. I'm going to do my best. Well, I'm committed to not buying any more books because, like I said, I find it kind of embarrassing that I have that many unread books on my shelves and on my Kindle. So I'm not planning to buy any more books for myself. I did receive a Barnes & Noble gift card for my birthday, so I'm excited to have that, but I think I'm going to try to save it for myself as a little treat later on in the year. I'll probably set a number of books that I need to finish reading before I can go and use that and pick out something else. But I really don't want to add to my physical TBR. I really want to read a lot of this down. I did so far I've read over 100 books this year, so I think it's definitely doable that I could get a like pretty big chunk of this physical TBR read in the next year. I think the series are probably going to be the area where I don't read as many of those books that are on my TBR, but definitely like duologies and any standalone books, I can definitely see myself knocking those out pretty quickly. This didn't take into account any new releases that I have pre-ordered. I think I have 4 or 5 books pre-ordered that are new releases, but those kind of come out throughout the year, so I'll probably just plan to have those as one of my like mood read picks in the month that I get them. But when I do get them, I will add them to my physical TBR on Goodreads, so that will stay up to date with all the books that I currently own. And I don't have to read all of these, in the sense that if I'm not enjoying something, I'm gonna DNF it, and I'm either gonna take it to my book club to trade it, or I'll do like resale, or I'll gift it to someone. I don't feel like I have to read every single book that's on that TBR in order to work down the TBR. So if I'm really not enjoying it, I will use another method to remove the book from my personal library. But that's my plan. So if you've stuck around this long, I know I've been yapping quite a bit. Thanks for being here, and I hope that you might be willing to stick around and help to hold me accountable as I go through the next 12 months and try to read as many books as possible off of my physical TBR. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye!